Um, Sorry, where was I? I am a recruiter for Wealthsimple. If you don't know, Wealthsimple is a company that is trying to democratize financial knowledge by giving everyone insights and tips on making decisions that would better their career and financially empower them. And I'm just going to just check to bring up my sample resume here. 1 second. Technical difficulties. Give me 1 sec. So while I'm getting ready, I'll have the chat open, but just out of curiosity, what are some of the #1 issues that you're finding with your resume when you're going to apply? Just put something in the chat and I'd be more than happy to answer some questions. Should take me no more than like 3 minutes to get my samples up though. Okay, give me 1 sec. So when it comes to resumes, one of the #1 mistakes that I notice that people make comes down with their voice on said resume. What does a voice mean? Well, when we think about writing out your resume, think of it as if you're writing out a story. Your resume serves as more or less as a piece of marketing for yourself. So think of it like a sales process almost. When you see a commercial on TV or even like a targeted ad, as we're very likely to see in this day and age, one of the #1 drivers for that is based on the information that they get and trying to target you as an audience. And for your resume, you kind of want to touch the same marks and make it with the same intention. Think about, okay, who's my audience? What am I trying to say to them? And how am I trying to get their attention? With resumes, I always like to say the message that you're trying to communicate to the hiring manager is, this is what I can do, and this is how it's going to make your life easier based on the job description and the information that you've given me. And just having that one intention can make a well of difference when it comes to your response rate and expecting to hear back from places that you apply to. Sorry, I'm just waiting for my computer to catch up with me. Where is my? There we go. Okay. I am tired of technology at this point. I wish we were all back in the office. Let me share my screen now. Okay. Yeah, let me know if the share is working okay. All right, can everybody see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Wonderful. So this is one of my older resumes from back when I was, let's see, what was this Jermaine? So this Jermaine was a couple years into his first corporate job as a recruiter with a company called Robert Half. He wasn't too happy with how he was getting paid. So he wanted to go out and he wanted to get a job that paid him more money. I think at this point in time, my salary was around $50,000. And I said to myself one day, because it was a sales job, and I remember that I helped my company close a deal that essentially was worth like $230,000. And the way that my pay was set up, they had this awful system called a draw against commission, which essentially meant that you don't get to, you actually basically borrow money from the company in the form of a salary. And until you pay that money back, you can't make any commission. And in terms of like the commission structure, in terms of the pay structure, it was really crazy because I helped the company close a $250,000 deal. And they turned around and they're like, yeah, you're not making any commission. You actually still owe us $10,000. And I was like, that's crazy. I'm not staying here to clear that up with my commission. I'll just go somewhere else. So I wanted somewhere that paid me at least 70,000. I remember saying that to myself. I want 70,000. I'm not taking a dollar less. So I went out and like I said, we're talking about intention. I went out and I created a resume that was going to more or less catch the eye of a hiring manager, because I wanted them to know that if you hire me, I'm going to be somebody that can, again, close deals, bring money through the door, and just provide you with a lot of value. So when we look at a resume like this, I'll explain to you why this sort of resume works and why it might be different from a more traditional resume that you might see. When it comes down to understanding your audience, know this: many hiring managers and many recruiters, people that screen resumes, they are dealing with a lot of different resumes, a lot of different applicants. For some organizations, they can put up a job posting on a Monday, and by Wednesday, they'll have over 100 people that they have to screen. And they're still responsible to adhering to all their other timelines for all their other responsibilities. So what does that mean? It means that when they're going through your resume, they're doing what we call as just skimming. They are going as fast as they can, pulling as much information as they can, and hoping to retain as much as possible. Now, when we're writing for our audience, we want to, again, keep a couple of things in mind: what they're asking for, what's the most value that we can provide them with, and then finally, how can we structure it in a way that when they are skimming, they are still going to be able to retain as much information as possible, and the most important information as possible. So I set out to create a resume, and this was a resume that was very successful for me. And I realized the reason was for a couple of different aspects. One, it's only a page long, right? I don't have to worry about about somebody getting lost or saying that my resume is just way too long, way too dense. Right away, subconsciously, this person is going to know this is going to be a fairly straightforward and easy read. The second thing is that I keep it light in terms of things like the summary. Looking back now, I would actually have taken out the summary, because when you think about somebody who's skimming and what areas they retain, think about it this way. A recruiter will spend maximum anywhere from 7 to 30 seconds on your resume. Most of them go through your resume and make a decision within the first 7 seconds. So you find that when you just do like a basic eye test and you see where your eyes, you try to go through a whole document like this in 7 seconds, where you see where your eyes end up in like the first 3-5 seconds, it's usually in this area here, what I like to call as your most valuable real estate. Now, the reason why I would have in the future, and what current Jermaine would do, is I would exclude the summary, is because it's in the most valuable real estate here. And the reason why this is the most valuable real estate is because this is your best opportunity to put your hooks into a hiring manager and to communicate on your resume why you're going to be providing that much value. And by the time they get to the end, where they're not really retaining much of that information, they'll still have what they read here at the forefront of their mind, and it's going to make and carry their opinion of what your resume is going to be like. So by doing the eye test, we find that, when we're scanning and when we're going through, you'll find that your eyes get caught up on the summary and you're losing valuable time there. But it still managed to be pretty effective because primarily of the skills and how they're used down here. Skills portions should be the first thing on your resume. In all honesty, it should go your skills, your experience, and then your credentials or your education. I always put education at the bottom because my rule of thumb is, if education is going to make or break my my opportunity, or make or break my application, they're going to go searching for it anyway. So might as well put it at the bottom of the resume. But back here, we use skills that are heavy relevant towards the actual resume, or sorry, the actual job posting itself, to again capture that eye, capture that attention, and just to really hit on the note, like this is a really relevant person that has all what you're looking for. Try to go through the job description, try to go through the actual company itself, and try to identify, what the most important thing from a value standpoint from that role and that company is, and try to find that balance. Like I mentioned earlier, I am somebody that works at Wealthsimple. If I'm going for a recruitment role, I'm going to be putting skills that are relevant to recruitment, but also skills that are relevant to Wealthsimple, both from a product standpoint and a value standpoint. And they're very vocal on what values they kind of push forward. You'll find in this day and age, with the political commentary around things like Black Lives Matter, or just the diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, a lot of companies realize that it's a business need to align their values with their recruitment strategy when going out and trying to get as many diverse people from as many diverse backgrounds as possible. So I say that to say it's easy to find what their values are, because they make sure that they put it at the forefront of all their websites, the forefront of their job descriptions, and at the forefront of like their company values. So try to find that and try to identify what values they have and possess as a company, what they value in terms of the position that you're going for, whether recruitment, software development, sales, and finally, what value their products bring to their clients and their customers. And those are going to form the background, the backbones of the kind of skills that you're going to want to enhance and kind of spotlight on your resume, not only in the skills portion, but in the actual content itself. And we'll get to that shortly. So this time, this Jermaine and this mind frame was going for another recruitment job at an external agency. And to give you some background, that's basically a sales job, disguised as a recruitment job. So I knew right away that if I was breaking it down into like 3 tenets of what would be important for a recruitment agency to want to hire this Jermaine, I realized that A, I had to communicate that I'd be good at sales. B, I had to communicate that I would be good at the fundamentals of recruitment. And C, I had to show them that as a salesperson, I had charisma, that I wasn't a jerk, I wasn't an asshole. And that's kind of like the main key thing that a lot of recruiters and hiring managers want to kind of understand about you. Can you do the job well? Do you have experience with the subject matters? And are you a jerk? Because nobody wants to work with a jerk. So if we look at the sales, and if you look at the 3 tenets of my screening here, I categorize it as sales, recruitment, and personal. Under sales, you see all the stuff that goes into like being a good salesperson. Video screening, screening out applicants, screening out clients, telemarketing, picking up the phone and doing cold calling, market intelligence, market penetration, meeting sales targets. All this just goes to show that I know how to look at a product, understand the value it gives to people, and then sell people on what that product and what those needs are and how it can make their lives easier. And that's always been my theme. People, you will get far in life. You will get far in your job search. You will get far in your career if you can tell people, I understand what your problems are, I understand what your needs are, and I can fix them. I can make your life easier. Everybody wants to hear that. If I give you $1 million right now, you can think about all the things you can do with $1 million, but it all boils down to one fact. You're happy because it's going to make your life easier. And that's kind of what we want to reinforce, not only in the resume, not only in the interview, not only the salary negotiation, but throughout your whole entire tenure with this company, whether it's at the beginning of the relationship as like your resume, or at the end of the relationship, when you're moving on to another company, you always want to hit back on, this is the value that I bring to anybody, to you, to the next person I work for, and the people that I worked for in the past. So that's where all these skills kind of come from in terms of being relevant and relevancy. Recruitment, it was the same thing. Technical recruitment, pinpoint recruitment, budgets, salaries, interview practices. And then personal, just let everyone know that I'm not a jerk. I'm enthusiastic. I have good communication skills, and I have strong product knowledge. So that brings me down to the next portion of the resume, the actual context of it. And this is where a lot of people make like the biggest mistakes when it comes to their resume, outside of length and outside of format. the impact, what you're actually saying. So there's a key difference between listing out a responsibility and listing out an achievement. And because people conflate those two things, that's where the biggest mistake of a resume comes into play. And this resume has a mix of both, which is good, which is going to be very helpful for us. So if you can see here, this first bulletin: effectively recruited and placed IT professionals and prioritize clients' requirements in a high volume, time sensitive environment to meet deadlines. I don't like that. I hate that. This bullet may sound good when you speak it out, but really and truly, the gap here for me is that this Jermaine didn't really tell me anything. This is a responsibility, right? It's not very specific. In fact, I feel like I could find this on the job description for the role that I put on. And that's a mistake that a lot of people make when they're doing their resumes or writing their resumes, is that they highlight responsibilities, things that they did in their day-to-day. And if you're going for a similar job, recanting what you did to your day-to-day to somebody that put a job description defining what the job would be and what they would be doing in their day-to-day, they're not going to take you seriously, or they're not going to be able to discern any type of value from your resume, because you're basically putting what they said back in their face. Now let's take a look at the second bulletin. Successfully placed over 20 candidates, resulting in personal billings of over $135,000 and maintaining a monthly per desk average of $27,000 year to date in 2019. Compare that to the first bulletin. Those are two completely different kind of statements, and those are two different kinds of information that you're putting for somebody to read and digest. Right away, that second bulletin tells me everything I need to do in terms of impact. I have actual numbers that I can quantify what this person was doing on their day-to-day. Not only that, but this person, or this Jermaine, went as far as to tell me the overall impact in terms of numbers, right? In terms of actual revenue that was generated. And they even broke it down to a monthly average of what I could expect for them to bring into me on a month-to-month basis, right? Those data points are really key in order to bridge the gap between the unknown and what I hope this person is going to be. And this resume was successful because it had more of these bullet points than it did of the responsibility ones, right? 85% retention rate for successful placement that have exceeded 6 months. Right away, I know that when it comes to retention rate, this person, or this Jermaine, has a retention rate of 85%. That's really close to 100%. That's really close to a guarantee, right? This recruited top talent through LinkedIn, internet research, all that jazz. That's, again, too general. Like, what kind of people were you recruiting, right? How many people did you recruit? How many people that you recruited went on to hold on jobs? I lucked out because my experience under enterprise was literally just all achievements. So it helped contextualize the sales aspect of the narrative I was trying to portray on this resume, right? I listed the fact that I was an award winner, right? And I gave context to how big of an award this was. I won an award where I was one of the top 12 employees in a 250 plus employee space. Yeah, that shows just quote unquote how impressive, or just why that kind of award may have been worth putting on, right? I talked about winning an award as a branch manager, because I placed in the top 3 out of 80 plus employees. Sales contest winner, talking about how I impacted the revenue and the growth of the organization I was working at. And I even put in averages. Anytime you can quantify your impact, anytime you can quantify your experience, is going to resonate with people, because, again, like I said, it bridges that gap between the unknown and what I hope that person is going to be like. And some of these numbers were a bit gaudy in themselves, so it was worth putting on. Now, you may be saying to yourself, well, Jermaine, this is all well and good, especially for a sales role, but I work in customer service, or, I'm a writer, or, Jermaine, I'm somebody that's trying to get into product management, or I'm an engineer. How am I going to be throwing out quantitative information when that might not be available to me? And this is when you want to start getting into the ideas of creating your own KPIs, right? I like to create my own KPIs in environments where I don't have KPIs because, they don't do their tracking or they're not being as transparent with their tracking. And basically a KPI stands for a key performance indicator. Now, you would want to create your own KPIs in the sense of the context of what's available to you. If you know that you're working a job, let's say you're working a retail job at West 49, which was one of my jobs back in the day. Don't ask me why I was working at West 49. I just was. But let's say that I want to make myself KPIs for West 49 because I know that they're not keeping KPIs for me, right? I basically have to ask myself, what are the reasons or metrics that they're judging me on not to fire me, right? I know that they're not going to fire me because I see about 20 people per day. And of those 20 people, I know that at least 10 of them are going to my manager to tell them like, hey, this guy's doing a really good job. So that's a KPI right there. I deal with 20 people per day. I work 5 days a week. That means I deal with 100 customers a week. And at least 50% of those customers are going to my manager with glowing recommendations, right? That's a KPI. That's the scope that I'm thinking about. So look at your scope, look at your area of impact, and then take a step back and try to, again, see what's actually going on. No one's telling you to lie. We're just asking you to bring numbers and quantify the stuff that's going on in your area. If you're an engineer, for instance, right, you would want to talk about, again, the technical stuff, the languages that you're using, but you would also want to talk a bit about how many users your application is being deployed to, how big the impact is. If you're an engineer working for a company that has clients, you want to talk about how big the clients are, right? Enterprise level clients, client deals worth multi-million dollars. This is the impact of the work that I'm working on. If you're a secretary or an executive assistant, my mom's an EA. If I were to make my mom's resume, I'd be talking about the fact that she manages the schedules for 3 different VPs across 4 different time zones. Hold up. Let me rephrase that. She would manage a schedule for 4 different VPs across 3 different time zones. Right? It just quantifies things and it allows people to make their own conclusions, but to better understand what's on your resume and how that is going to make their lives easier at the end of the day. Because as long as you're putting relevant information, relevant accomplishments, people are going to be able to connect the dots by themselves that much more easier, right? This is super important for when you're trying to break into new industries, because you want to put those relevant skills, those transferable skills front and center and quantify them by wrapping them around achievements, right? So if you're going into an industry, if you're going to tech, from retail to tech, that journey usually looks like somebody going into like customer service or customer success or sales, right? If you're going from retail to tech and you're going into customer success, or you're going into sales, you're going to want to look for relevant information from your past working in retail, right? And that would look like, customer satisfaction scores. That would look like revenue generated. That would look like commission, right? That is transferable in a tech environment, because at the end of the day, you're still selling stuff. You're still managing irate customers. It's just under the flavor of tech, right? And that's what we talk about. That's why we want to make sure that, especially if you're trying to break new ground in a new industry, you're highlighting transferable skills, you're quantifying them so you can make people understand what value they would get by bringing you in their environment. So you want to keep it short. You want to keep it brief. My general rule of thumb is if you have less than 5 years of experience, you only need a 1-page resume. If you have anywhere between 5 years of experience and 99 years of experience, you only need 2 pages on your resume. Nobody's trying to read a novel. Nobody's trying to read a book, right? Like I said, when somebody puts up a posting, they could expect anywhere from 2 to 100 people applying, and they still have a whole day's worth of work to get in while going through all of these resumes. So they're trying to be as efficient as possible. They're trying to get through it as quickly as possible. So we got to know what kind of mind frame they're in right to that mind frame and put all the relevant information front and center so that when they get to the end of our resume, they can go, wow, I loved reading that. I want to meet this person. And that's it. That's the exact sentiment that your resume is supposed to elicit. In terms of the way that you want to flow your resume, the way that you want to structure it, start out with the skills first. Ignore the summary bit like this Jermaine did. Go into your career, go into your experience, talk about your achievements in the sense, in a way that allows you to use some of the skills from up above. Incorporate that within your wins so that when somebody reads, when they read your skills at the top and then they go into your actual resume context and your resume content and like the information of your impact statements, they can immediately put two and two together. But also, because we're dealing with people that are skimming, the keywords are reinforced in their head once again when they see it play out with your actual achievements and your wins. Between that and the context, they're going to walk away very impressed with who you are. I've been chatting and talking. Let me just open back up the chat. I'm just going to end my split screen. See what kind of, oh, sorry, Ryan, sorry, I cut you off. Didn't mean to.
Yeah, no worries. I was going to ask, did you want to read through, or there was a few I saw that came in?
Yeah, I just, let me see. So Sean asked, would a more effective use of that summary space be for a career objective statement? And the answer is no. Career objective statements are a product of a bygone era. We don't use that anymore. I know that your objective is to get a job with this organization because you applied for the job. So you don't need to do a career objective. I find it challenging to quantify my experience as a healthcare worker. Janelle, what I would say to you is that you gotta like step back and do that whole scope thing, as I said. Think about how many patients. I'm going to assume, just for argument's sake, that let's say that you're a nurse at a hospital, right? I would want to talk about how many patients you see per day, or even like the type of ailments that ail your patients, right? You can say that, I would say something like responsible for overseeing the well-being of anywhere up to 50 patients per day that could range from that could be suffering from a wide range of illnesses. And you could say if you're in the ICU, or you could say if you're like working in the mental health ward, and talking about how many people you interact with per day, the hours that you work, and the amount of service and care that they need, and quantifying that, right? Especially if you're in like that mental health space, you can talk about how patient happiness has such a big impact on their road to recovery. So I hope that helps in terms of giving you a bit more perspective. Sean wrote, again, as a manager, I solicit potential candidates through a formal request from my HR department. HR uses ATS, or applicant tracking screening technology, to screen. What are your thoughts on using more action words and engagement language? In essence, I look for action achieving language and not so much passive doing language. I want to know what you can do for me. I wholeheartedly agree with that sentiment, Sean. That's exactly what I was saying in terms of, making sure that we're talking in achievements as opposed to responsibilities, because you as a hiring manager, you don't know people, you don't know anyone from Adam. You don't know who they are. You might not know what they're doing. And if you do, you might not even know the company that they're doing it for. And if you do, you don't even know to what extent. So there are a lot of unknowns there. So anybody that can help bridge that gap by just clearly quantifying, this is what I do whenever I enter a new environment, makes your job much easier, which means that makes you want to talk to them more. I am in marketing. This is from DeParse. I'm in marketing, and I feel like I need to reshape my resume so a manager role or a coordinator I can achieve. How can I do that with 5 years of marketing experience? So it depends in a couple of different ways, DeParse. One, if it comes down to intention and just knowing what kind of marketing roles that you want to go for, right? Let's say, for argument's sake, you want to go for a social media marketing role. You have 5 years of marketing experience. You got to be intentional in terms of what you identify as relevant information. If you're going for a social media marketing heavy role, your resume should be one that's centered around using and building out social media pages and platforms, growing the audience, and then talking about the strategies you use to make sure that the audience is growing, but also engaging with the posts and the content that you use, right? If you've done it like here and there for like different brands, different people, on your resume, brand the freelance experience as you would at any like full-time job. So like give your freelance experience a name, like make a business name for yourself. You don't have to actually officially register it, but putting it down on your resume as like a actual business or actual operation and treating it as such will make people take that experience a lot more seriously, right? So instead of it being, just freelance marketing, your last name is Cottrell, you can say like marketing by Cottrell, right? And you can put yourself as social media marketer, and then put all the achievements for what you've done in terms of growing your clients' audiences and demographics, and anything in terms of growth hacking down under that as an achievement. And that's kind of how you would want to portray that 5 years of experience. Sean also gave shout out to Janelle, and I agree. She does do a lot of important work, especially during a pandemic. Shout outs to you. They're not showing enough love to the healthcare workers in my experience, in my humble opinion. Any other questions though?
Yeah, let me check if I saw any others too. So,
what is your recommendation for a resume file format? PDF or Word? Always send it as a PDF. The thing about Word documents, and it actually played out here right in front of me. I initially sent over my resume as a Word document, but because of the way that it's set up on this, Microsoft Word is set up on this computer, the template was everywhere. So I had to resend to myself as a PDF, because a PDF is the only guarantee that the integrity of your formatting and your resume will stay consistent no matter if it's opened up on a Mac or Windows, Linux, whatever. How do you approach more mature person seeking a job with an age discrimination? How far back should you express your years of experience? Funny enough, I had a conversation with someone last week talking about this same thing. I think this is a gentleman that was about 57 years old. He had a wealth of experience when it came to like logistics and operations, especially when it came to like trucking and delivery. And he was he went from being his own boss to now looking for a job at an established company. And he was afraid that he was running into this problem. And he asked me how to overcome it. And the thing that I said to him is, because he said that the main problem is that there are people that the company feels like they can get people that can do his same job for half the amount because they can get half of the experience. And I said to him, when it comes to that situations like that, where you feel like you have an actual, like you have a weakness, or you feel like there is an opening, what should you do? I told him to lean into that, lean into the experience, lean into the quote unquote weakness that you're afraid of. If you feel like you have too much experience, let them know that they're talking to somebody that has seen it all and done it all, and that could help them grow at a much faster rate, because you have that wealth of experience and they can pull on your lived in experience to make sure that they don't run into any of those unexpected problems. And then I would lead about talking about some of those unexpected problems and give them an idea on how that they would maneuver. On the resume itself, you always want to go with value. Like I said, try to understand who's going to be reading your resume. What is the job asking for? Where is the company positioned, and how are you best to help them? Right. If in that gentleman's case, we looked up a bunch of startups that were in the logistics space, and we found a job that basically was him planning out routes. And he was telling me about the insight that you get for this type of work, because certain areas have like slowdown periods, because they have special signage around zoning for schools, for instance, right? And you can get a pretty hefty fine as a delivery driver speeding in a school zone, much more than a resident, right? So that kind of insight can save a company a lot of money down the line. And it's those kind of insights that you kind of want to play into again, that lived in experience, you're getting this person with this much of experience. Why wouldn't you want to hire me? At the end of the day, you have to understand that if a company hires you for $100,000, it's because they believe they're going to get a return of investment of $500,000. So I got to ask you, the dynamic in this relationship, is that not a partnership? If I'm getting you a 5x return of what you're spending on me, that's a partnership. I don't work for you. We work for each other. And that's kind of how the angle that you should play it at. It makes them respect you more. It makes them take you more seriously, and it gives you more position to ask for more. Another one was, should skills be in the prime location on a resume? If so, where's the ideal for an objective summary? Abolish objective and summaries. Remove it completely from your resume. And where you'd put your objective summary is where you put your skills. And then from your skills, you jump right into your experience. And from your experience, you jump right into your education or your certs. And that's the end of the resume, or that's the end of the page. HR suggests they have a better efficiency using Word through the ATS software. So ATS software is tricky. So a lot of times there are over 45 different HR and ATS software, and some of them, a very small percentage of them, have what's called like an auto reject function, where like there's some sort of like AI or parsing software that says if you don't have a certain amount of keywords, it'll be auto rejected. And the number of these programs are actually going down, not up. The reason why they're going down is because there are reports coming out for implicit bias within names. I think the report cited a woman named Lakeisha that was discriminated against because her name was identified as something that was a negative. So a lot of companies are walking away from that. More often than not, what happens with an ATS system is that it will gather resumes, it will parse the resumes, and it will organize, and it will store the resumes based on the keywords that are there. But a lot of times it actually also auto organizes the resumes based on the job descriptions. So more often than not, somebody from HR, a recruiter, or a hiring manager, or HR manager actually has to go in and, kind of like Sean suggests, the resumes have to be screened by HR before they get to him. So more often than not, you might get a auto reject message, but it's because somebody with human eyes looked at your resume and pressed a reject button to reject your resume. So you still I still suggest sending it in with a PDF. It's great to have keywords in there, but you're putting the keywords in there because you're trying to trick a human brain and not a computer one. And I make that distinction because there's a belief going around that if you just write out a whole bunch of random skills and keywords, and you put it in white ink, and you just leave it off to the side, that will bypass the ATS system. No, it won't. It won't make a difference. It might raise a couple of questions in the event that somebody accidentally hits Control-Alt and like they highlight your resume and they just see a bunch of skills in the corner, which would distract them from like the actual important stuff on your resume, which means that they're more likely to skip your resume. Professional logically would have perhaps 20 years plus work experience, but I'm really only interested in the most recent 10 to 15 years or so. How much information and lay on your resume in terms of experiences? Everything or limit to 10 to 15? So to me, and a lot of people, and if you think about it this way, I have a rule of thumb where I'm like 5 years, anything beyond 5 years in the past is irrelevant, in the sense that if you aren't using those skills in the present and the last you used them was 5 years ago, they're dated. You can even think about what the world looked like 5 years ago. And I think we can all agree 5 years ago, the world was a completely different place. So anything older than 5 years on your resume, all that it's really doing is just confirming your tenure, right? If you were at the same job for the last 15 years, chances are you moved up a couple of times. So you wouldn't be focusing on the stuff that you did in the earlier part of your career. You'd be focusing on the stuff that you did in the most recent part of your career. But the only thing that really doing with that date is just confirming your tenure. So if you're writing out your resume and you find that you have a lot of experience, within that 5+ range. In this case, Sean is talking about 10 to 15 years. What I would do would either be to focus on the most recent, and then I would either put just the titles and the dates of the places that I worked beyond those 5 years, or I would consolidate all that into like just one heading, where I would put it as like, for argument's sake, I'd put the job title as software developer, and I'd put the employer as various companies, and just consolidate it as that with the 10-year mark. Just to keep it simple, just to keep it clean. Anyone else? No worries, Sean, my pleasure.
If no one else, Jermaine, if no one else has any question, I don't know if you want to just go back over the first part where you identify the most important things to be on the resume for those who came in late.
The most important things to put on a resume.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Sarmi.
One sec. Let me share my screen again. Everyone see my screen? I can't see the chat, so I just need someone to just go on and say yes.
Yes, we're seeing it.
All right, so the most important things to put on your resume, in terms of order, we want to focus on skills, and we want to focus on experience. When it comes to experience, you want to focus on your achievements. The mistake that a lot of people make is that they will put responsibilities on their resumes and not so much achievements. The difference between a responsibility and an achievement is specific to something that you actually did, where you were commended on, or just something that you can pull a stat from. It's an impact. So usually it's quantified by numbers, or you're talking about your experience in some sort of scope. Here on the example that I used, the first bullet here is a responsibility, because it's very vague. You're not being really specific in terms of what you're actually doing, other than just some general statements about a job. This, as compared to the second bulletin, where there are clear numbers and clear impact, in terms of dollars and in terms of timelines, with regards to the experience. So somebody reading this can instantly put 2 and 2 together on how well this person can perform on their job, because they put actual quantifiable stats on the resume itself. When it comes to education, you always want to put it at the bottom, because if education is that important to them, they'll go looking for it. So they might as well read the entire resume before they get there. And in terms of summaries and objectives, I'm from the school of thought where we just get rid of them entirely. We start out with our skills, and then we jump into our career experience. When it comes to trying to identify skills themselves, I say you want to take an approach where you are trying to identify the skills most relevant to the job posting and what it's asking for, the product that the company makes, and the relationship of value between it and the consumer, and then finally the company itself and what values they put on a full display for everybody to see. What values are their business built on? Try to find as much overlap and as much alignment as possible, and that's how you want to focus your resume, and that's how you want to be intentional with building out your resume when going to apply for new jobs.
Thank you, Jermaine.
My pleasure.
Jermaine, I have a question. What about your affiliations and associations? Should that be on the resume, or that be a talking point when you're before the recruiter or the?
I will only put it on the resume if it's extremely relevant. Otherwise, it can be delivered in the interview itself as a talking point. I'm just going to go with the example of being a recruiter here. Now, if I was applying for, let's say, like a company like Well Simple, Something that may be an association that may be worthwhile to put on there would be maybe Kpis, the Canadian Association of Urban Financial Professionals, because it's relevant because it's in the finance space. And as a recruiter, there's that emphasis on urban or Black, where, you know, they can it kind of alludes to the fact that like it's relevant, right? But even then, I wouldn't be too concerned about it, because a lot of times the associations and the extracurriculars just comes across as filler, and you kind of take away from the message that you're trying to put in your resume. But if it's super relevant and it kind of plays up to the narrative of you're trying to play for your resume, it can work.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Where do you put that, Jermaine? At the end, extreme end?
I would put it at the end. Yeah. Associations would fall under, to me, certifications and education.
Thank you. I think we have one more question in the chat, Jermaine. Let me check.
Let me hop back over to the chat. Yeah, I think sharing your resume with a resume writer is a good one. You always want to make sure that you are just vetting the resume writers that you're going and you're working with, for a couple of different reasons. One, it wouldn't make sense to go to a resume writer that specializes in making healthcare resumes if you're going for a tech job. Two, just a fair bit of warning. A lot of times, and I say this as a resume writer myself, a lot of times resume writers will use the free assessment to tear down your resume and make you feel an emotionally vulnerable place where their services look a lot more appealing. So try to get multiple opinions, try to establish a baseline or some consistency, so that you're being just a bit more informed. Format and style. Oh, sorry. I think Sarah asked something that I may have missed. Maybe this was already touched on. How about format and style? Many colorful contemporary styles. Are these okay, or keep it simple? Honestly, the most important thing is the actual impact statements themselves. I like pictures on resumes. I don't like graphs on resumes. But there is something to say about like an aesthetically pleasing resume. But it can be a hard balance to find, especially since art and taste can be so subjective. Some people might be turned off because it's a distraction, and some people might like it too much because it causes a distraction. But depending on your job, it might actually be in your benefit to go after to have like a colorful resume or a resume that stands out. And those jobs are usually like your creative jobs. So like your marketing, your graphic design, your front end development, things of that nature.
All right, solid. I'm not seeing any final questions, and again, if anybody thinks of, Jermaine, did you want to put in your, or in the chat, just your contact if you wanted to reach out?
Yeah.
And really appreciate, again, you taking the time. Very informative. I I was looking at my resume as I was sitting and watching, and I'm like, oh snap. Now I see why I don't get callbacks. So we're kind of breaking it down. And Charmaine,
I think you went on mute, Ryan, by accident.
The invite for everyone, the job fair on October 1st. We'd love to see everybody come out there and put these skills to the test, because when you register, we are going to ask you for your resume so that we can do some job matching and potential interviews at the event. So Friday, October 1st from 9 to 5 or 9 to 4-ish. Love to see everybody there. And Jermaine, again, this was great. Thank you so much. And it will be sent out as a recording to everybody. So if there's pieces that you want to go back and check, you'll get that shortly, probably by Monday.
Awesome. Thank you again for having me.
Sorry, one last question. I
Our
don't
pleasure.
know if Jermaine can handle that one.
What's
Sorry.
up?
don't know if this was asked, but how do you translate your international experience to match?
Experience is just experience. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think I can be very frank with everybody in this room. I personally really hate to admit this, or not to admit it, but I hate that this is a thing. People who say like international experience is experience at the end of the day, whether it's from Nigeria, whether it's from Ukraine, whether it's from England, whether it's from the USA, it all comes down to what you can actually do. Anybody that says to you like, oh, you don't have enough local experience, they're racist. They're
Point
racist.
taken.
That's it. Sorry. I know that was a bit dramatic, but like, but no, they're being racist.
All right, Charmaine, how does it look? Is that the last one?
Thanks again. I did post a link to register to our job fair, October 1st. That's a Friday.
Yeah.
And in 2 weeks from now, Ryan had reminded us that we have the final workshop, which will be the interview campaign and workshop, and that will be interesting and awesome, just like this one, Jermaine. Thank you so much. As Ryan said, it was very informative, and I hope everyone had good information that they needed, and it will help you in the future going forward. And looking forward to see you all in 2 weeks' time.
Awesome.
Excuse me, is there a promo code for the link to register for the fair, the job fair?
I put it in, just put it in. where-
Sorry, I came late.
Yeah, there's no promo code. It's free for you to.
Just a register link, just even Eventbrite.
Yes, I clicked on it. However, when I'm registering, it's asked me for the promo code. The cost is $0 to $266.
Yeah, the one that you pick is the 140.
Okay.
Yeah, no need to put in a promo code.
Oh, no need to put in promo code. Okay, thank you.
Right. No problem. All right. Have a good weekend, everyone. We shall talk soon. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Take care.